This episode of The Marketing Show is brought to you by Quest, New Zealand's most respected digital marketing agency, where marketing is made easy.
Welcome to the Quest Marketing Show, a show specifically designed to help marketers learn and succeed. In this episode, you'll meet Caro Uttley. She's one of our Quest Marketing digital stars, and she's been the brains behind some of our most successful campaigns. So let's get started. Caro, thanks so much for being here on the Quest Marketing Show. We really appreciate your time, and I know how busy you've been lately. Hey, tell us about this amazing pink outfit you've got on today.
Well, thank you for noticing, Hamish. Yes, I am a pink girl. I do like pink. Part of this is holding this crazy mop of hair in that I have at the moment. So it's there is a function with it as well. But yeah, pink's one of my colours. In fact, if you came to my house, Hamish, I know you've been there, you will know how pink things get there, along with turquoise and hot bright yellows. Pop, 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 pop. Nobody can fall asleep in my house.
Well, as we know as marketers, it's about getting noticed, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And look, also great to see your hair's grown a lot since I last saw you. You had a bit of a difficult time last year.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was I never felt sick, but yes, I did go through breast cancer, as so many women do, unfortunately, and it was actually a really positive experience for me. I was one of the fortunate ones that didn't sort of suffer. I sailed through it, to be honest, which makes me feel guilty about all the people that don't. But I found it a really positive, empowering experience, to be honest, because it really does make you, put a stake in the ground and go, crikey, there is only one life. And I was super healthy, Hamish, you know me. I was at the gym all the time. I eat super healthy, and then bang, nothing's hurting, but you get this thing. But it was fantastic because it did make me refocus and think, right, crikey, I got to make sure everything I do matters, and let's get out there and do it and make a difference in this world. It's important to be positive and make a difference. Yeah, well, you've just done so well, and our whole team has seen that, and right throughout that health experience and scare that you had, you continued to do your digital success manager's role with us, and did a fantastic job of that, looking after our clients. We really appreciate that. Caro, I'm sure our audience would be really interested to know what it takes to launch and craft a successful marketing campaign. I know that you've been doing some really interesting work over the last couple of years for Quest in your role. What are the key campaign experiences you can tell us about that our audience could learn from? Well, Hamish, that's a teensy-weeny question, isn't it? Thinking about one of my client projects that I work with, initially, clearly you have to get to know the customer really well. You need to understand where their business is at, what they're trying to achieve for the business, and another huge part of it is understanding who their client audience is. Right, so just breaking that down, you're saying strategy first, then understanding your customer second. So those are distinctly different tasks, aren't they? You're so right, Hamish. So many times in marketing, people make the mistake, or businesses make the mistake, of trying to talk to everybody. We know if you're trying to talk to everybody, essentially, you're probably talking to nobody. You really do need to understand who your audience is. And from my perspective, from the strategy thing, it was then going and speaking to the audience and finding out, well, what's their understanding of the business, and identifying where the gaps are, I guess, so that we could then work with the business to fill those gaps and make their communications clearer to their chosen audience. So let's just think about that strategy piece. What sort of involvement did you have that one project that you're talking about? And obviously we can't name names here. What did that involve? You were working with a management team, with a board, stakeholders? How did all that happen? Yes, well, and the one I've got in my mind, I was working with the management team, and they do report to a board, so we were having to tick boxes with them as well. But we did a strategy, which a full marketing strategy, including social media, which is, everybody's got to get on board with that these days, whether you like it or not. And obviously some of these older businesses or with older clients forget that is part of the game these days.
So what forms of research were conducted on behalf of the client?
So we went with SurveyMonkey, which worked nicely because we were already engaged with this client with MailChimp, so that worked well to communicate to that audience. So we had quite a comprehensive survey which we did online, plus we chose some phone interviews as well, so that was backed up.
Okay, so the SurveyMonkey was probably more the quantitative bit where they were talking to their large database of
yes.
clients, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And then you did more of the in-depth telephone interviews, which was
correct.
Yeah,
yes,
more the qualitative bit.
That's right. And there were prizes on the line as well, because like everybody gets asked to do interviews all the time, and so again, going back to that whole audience piece, what was going to work for this audience, and in our case we were working with farmers, well, what would work for them and be attractive to make them want to fill this thing
Sure.
in.
So you were using interview incentives basically to get them involved.
Yeah.
So what were the key learnings from that?
Whoa, well, so that's a really big question, and we did deal with two different audiences as well. There were the farmers themselves, and then there were some particular risk groups in this area. And we realised that there were a lot of gaps in terms of their understanding of the current situation. Many of them didn't know this organisation from the branding perspective, and I guess really we just weren't, the messages were just not getting out there. So we really had to up our game in terms of communication and making it more attractive communication as well, engaging, I think is the word actually. That was really what we wanted to do, is engage them more.
How did the next phase then of the marketing campaign roll out in response to that? The strategy work you'd done, the research work that you'd done that obviously identified these gaps.
Yeah.
What were the next deliverables, for the client? What did that involve?
Yeah. Well, so when we understood that we had segmented part of the audience to understand who our main, who we really wanted to talk to first, and so it's very much a part of talking directly to those audience, to that particular audience. So people will engage more if they can identify with it. So in the various audiences that we had identified, we had to actually craft our message with imagery and video to make those people sort of sit up and take notice. The first thing we decided we had to do was rebrand. Our messaging clearly wasn't resonating with our clients, and we really wanted to get their attention and speak more directly to the various audiences that we were wanting to reach. So we felt, and the board as well felt, that a rebrand was appropriate. So as part of that, we have done a wonderful rebrand. So we started, Hamish, with the website. We needed to have an engaging platform from which we could send people to, and also have resources available. So that was a huge part of it. Inside that website, we have put video stories, and really anyone that's not on board with video these days is missing out, because not only is it telling the story of our organisation, we also have our target audiences telling their story as well. So when we're trying to send people from social media, and in this particular instance we've chosen Facebook, when we're trying to send people to our website, we want them to be talking to, hearing from, listening to people that they engage with. Video is
a great way to engage an audience and be really immersive, but also a great way to communicate your ideas, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. So Hamish, as you know, in marketing these days, it's all about educating, entertaining, or inspiring people. So that's what we're aiming to do, and everybody will get something different out of the resources that we're offering. But video is something that can reach people, because people do feel like you're speaking to them. And if you've got people that they can identify with, for instance, a farmer in our case, talking to a farmer, it's not some marketing person trying to talk to a farmer. They're talking to their peers. They're listening to their peers.
All right, so you're really talking about testimonials in the mix as well, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So then you've got the company potentially not having to communicate their message. Their clients are doing it for them and talking to prospective clients.
Oh, that's right. I agree. And the way that I think about it as a marketer is that my job is almost like method acting. Once I know who the audience is, I actually have to get into the head of that audience. So in this instance, the one that we're talking about with farmers, I have to get into the head of a farmer and understand, well, what matters to me? Who do I want to hear from? What messages, what language, how do I speak? Is it very formal? Hell no. No, it has to be at the level that they would communicate at.
So you're really talking about identifying exactly who they are, what media they want to consume, what messages they'll respond to, what language they'll respond to best, right, for the best result for the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And with imagery and video, which we've already said, video is so important. Not only does it, it helps people stop on that crazy scrolling Facebook, or whether it's that or any of the other social media platforms that you might have chosen. It's also helping your website get more hits. So Google loves video, and so they will promote your website if you've got more video on it to your website, because you may have heard that's what we term your owned land, because nobody can really get a handle on this whole social media thing these days. Every time you turn around, the rules are changing. So, don't put all your money into social media, because the rules might all change tomorrow, and then you've lost all of your audience. But your website, that's where you're really wanting to direct people to. Yeah,
I agree. And of course, we haven't even touched on strategies and tactics such as inbound marketing, have we? Where you're building landing pages with specific offers, forms for people to enter, and really filling up your database, aren't you? So that you can talk to a very engaged audience who've opted into your message.
Well, that's right. And I think that is another really clever thing that marketers can do these days, is actually offer things to their audience. Be useful, like this, in that entertain, educate, inspire. Educate them, put stuff on your website or in your social media platforms that is useful to them, that they can download or watch again or learn from. And whilst they might not buy something from you today, they might remember you, and they might speak to somebody else that's going to buy something from you today. But it's all about positioning yourself as leaders in your field. You know what you're talking about, and they're likely to come back to you.
I agree, and I think that whole hard sell, if you're hard selling today, you're really at risk, because people are getting very good at turning off the interruption, aren't they, and just blocking it, not getting your message through. So I agree, if you can turn around that messaging and offer them free information that's useful and educational, that's a way of cutting through this first phase of awareness, brand awareness, into consideration, that next marketing step, isn't it?
For sure.
So, and just on that, I know you were running some workshops recently for local businesses through Business Hawke's Bay.
Yes.
There were startups and existing businesses, I think, wanting to grow scale. So Facebook was part of that, for example, wasn't it? What you covered there with social media.
Yes. Yeah, we talked to them about, there's so many platforms that you can choose these days, but going back to the basics, Hamish, it is all about identifying your audience. So trying to use Snapchat when you're talking to a bunch of farmers, it's not going to work. They're not on that platform. But if you're trying to sell some hip, cool, trendy thing to the kids, then don't be on Facebook, because they're not there. So you really have to identify where your audience is, and really choose probably one or two. Don't try and cover everything everywhere, because you'll just you'll run out of energy, and you really just need to focus on a couple of platforms at once, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree, and they're quite different, aren't they? So Facebook's very different from LinkedIn, for example, and who that audience is, right?
Yeah, certainly Facebook, you're really, B2C, you're talking from a business to the consumers who are out there, hopefully with all their personal pages. LinkedIn is more business to business, so you're talking on a more professional level at that point,
And then we've got other channels which are growing rapidly, haven't we? We're seeing the youth out of now Facebook and this huge trend towards Instagram.
Yeah, that's right. Instagram is huge, so that's very image focused, and Snapchat as well. But a lot of these things are because of people's attention spans being so short these days, which is probably brings us to a really good point in that you really need to grab people's attention, and what we talk about these days are, engage. They're not going to listen if you're not grabbing their attention in the first few seconds. You've lost them, so you do need to get a little bit clever about that.
So what advice would you have for a company that's really looking at social, but grappling with what channels to be on, what messaging to be giving, and even how often they should be posting? What would you be saying and suggesting to them?
Well, I think the most important thing right off the cuff is to tell your story. So many organisations sort of go back to marketing of the past, where you had to sort of look very prim and proper and professional, and it had to be all squeaky clean. Things have kind of turned on their head these days, and actually to show your vulnerabilities and your failures is a good thing, because people want to get to know you, telling your own story and not having to be 100% perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, and that's what your audience will relate to, because sure as hell they're not perfect out there. So by telling your journey, they will relate to it. Everybody can relate to a journey. So that would be my first recommendation, is tell your story, be real, and maybe get inside your business, give people a glimpse, go and talk to the staff in the lunchroom, go and talk to people at their desks, show people how it all operates in the background. That's a great
You're
way.
Talking about the behind the scenes piece, right? Which is incredibly important.
Absolutely, because then people can see that that you're real, you're a real person, you're a real business just like they are, and they'll be able to relate to you more.
So really, we've got to get beyond that cringe element, don't we? Gosh, am I interesting? What have I got to offer that's interesting? Is our story interesting? The reality is, it is interesting to the right audience, and it's how you tell it.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's actually really important, because you do want to narrow down your audience. You're not going to try and talk to anybody, so don't worry about upsetting somebody. Be real, tell your story. Don't worry about the people that you're going to lose. You will lose people, but you can't sell your products or services to everybody. You are wanting to get down to those people that really matter and that you really will engage with, either now or in the future sometime.
Right, and just in terms of that fulfillment, so you're saying think about a strategy that works for you, and using the right social channels, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, probably not Snapchat for most, LinkedIn certainly, and then driving your audiences to your website, right? As you say, that's your own land.
Your own land.
That's where you can really control the content, and no one's going to change the rules on you, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so once you capture them there, what do you do next? I think you hinted before, offers be useful, share information, learning is important today, and we talked about landing pages too.
So you are wanting to transition people from your social space to your own space, as we talked about before, which is your website. So you have control over that. You want to offer things to people that are useful to them, so drive them to landing pages that are appropriate to them. So whether you're driving them to a particular offer that you're wanting them to take advantage of, forms that they might fill out to get some information for free that you're happy to give them, occasionally competitions, sending them to watch testimonial videos is super helpful, of course, because then they can identify with them again. And you're along the way, you're collecting data for your database. So your a name and an email address and a phone number occasionally is all being collected by your organisation, not to spam, but to only provide useful information that will work for them in the future sometime.
Right, so you're talking about having customers and potential customers opt in to your database,
for
right?
Sure, yeah.
And using forms in your landing pages, for example, which may feed into, let's say, a database of MailChimp, an email service, as we know, or perhaps even better, a CRM system. like Zoho that we use here, whereby you can capture that data and then move them through that sales funnel, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's just that constant touch, talking to people. If they're filling out a form off your website, they've provided information to you and they've ticked that box that says that they're happy to be communicated with, then maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but somewhere along the line they're interested in your products or services, and that constant touch, just talking to them every now and then, keeps you sort of top of mind. And so the next time they go to consider your product or your service or whatever it is, the fact that they've been hearing from you, they're in your brain. They know you because you've told them your story, and they've actually met you, whether face to face or on the phone, and they identify with you more. So you're more likely to get a look in than the guy next door who's just got some fancy ad, very professional looking thing.
So, Caro, finally, what would be the best advice you think you can give to a company that might be, really thinking about their marketing? They're probably aware that it's getting more and more complex.
Yes.
More and more channels to think of, particularly digital. They may have, very hard fought won modest marketing budget, and they want to make sure that they're investing it in the right place. What would your advice be for them, considering where they go next?
Yes, well, just looking at the guys that I work with, often it's just all too hard. Like, they actually don't understand how it works, I mean, there's a lot to keep up with. Things are changing all the time. So even from the respect of them sending words and things for me to then change into the persona. I mean, they're working with these guys all day, but I have got this, this method acting thing in my head down pat now, so I know the tone that I'm using to talk to these people. And, oftentimes I'm not doing a huge amount for them now that we've got things really, really running, but they just need help, so we've...
Right, so you're saying what you're doing is you're translating their ideas, their core functions, and then converting that into copy, for example, which engages their audience in a much better way.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, look, let's face it, everybody else is busy doing the doing, They don't have time to sit around and think of some cool new ideas, or, hey, what about this angle, or why don't we try that? So, I mean, that people just often just need a bit of help, and it doesn't have to cost a fortune.
And I know you're also using video snippets. That's something that's new, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I really enjoy using those. And again, it's coming back to this engage, and finding your tribe and identifying where they are and how to talk to them best. But in terms of our videos that Quest does, they might be, X number of seconds or minutes long, but it's quite easy to do small little snippets and pop those onto social media just to grab people's attention, and then if they want to see more, send them off to the website where they all are resident, so those things are quite useful, I find.
Right, so you're saying shorter can be better as well.
Sure.
with this very time poor audience that we're all dealing with, and they might be using their smartphone and just viewing something on the fly, right?
Yeah.
So you've really got to be on the money in terms of not disrupting them for too long and being relevant. What role do you think, if they're unsure, as you said, if they're unsure about what to do next, what would be a really good place to start, do you think? Would it be something around maybe developing a strategy, and if they maybe don't have the expertise themselves, getting some help?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no point just being sort of scattergun about things. You're not going to get anywhere. And as I said earlier, if you're trying to talk to everybody, you're probably talking to nobody. So just sitting down and talking to somebody that can help you put a strategy together is a really, really good start. And then looking at what resources you have to actually direct people to. So that might be printed, video, as we've talked about. Your website really needs to be up to scratch. And just getting all of your ducks in a row so that when you're talking to people, you've got some really cool and pertinent but personalised to your audience material to share with them.
Right, that's the content piece, isn't it?
That's
content marketing is really the thing that's being talked a lot about today, more than ever before, isn't it?
That's right.
Hey, Caro, I wanted to thank you so much for your time today,
you're so
and
welcome.
taking this time to come to our new Quest studio.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty flash.
It is, isn't it? It's a great space, and we're really thrilled to have it to be able to put together this material. But thanks for your time and helping us along today.
Yes,
and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you as the months go on.
For sure. All right. Thanks for having me, Hamish.
Thanks.
All right.
That's the latest episode of the Quest Marketing Show. Thanks so much for being with us here today. Remember, you can get the full interview via podcast, so check out our website. We'd also love to hear from you and about your key marketing challenges. See you next time on the Marketing Show.
This episode of The Marketing Show is brought to you by Quest, New Zealand's most respected digital marketing agency, where marketing is made easy.